finally time. Series number 2. The final day of the N4C Qualifiers. We've already seen one player qualify this weekend, and now we need a second. And this might end up being the last hope for someone outside of Europe to qualify as we head into Series number 2. It begins with StrikeR and Leenock facing off here on Dry Arabia with France versus Abbasid. And we've seen this matchup already today, and it was quite the grim taking for the French players. It's going to be interesting to see how StrikeR adapts compared to what we've already seen once today. Because I feel like the big bait that France falls into is they get dragged out into this very predictable opening of Cav archers. Because you're already going to get the Cavs to begin with. The next step is the archers, which just feels so kind of, you know, nicely slotted in. It makes sense. It also gives you scaling the castle, etc. The problem I have is Abbasid have a nice flow of going spearmen, because instantly, like, if they want to go for secondary TC, they need a defensive unit to protect them against the cavalry. It's just natural transition. And then they push into those powerful horsemen with a stable. And that transition, that natural flow of the transition of these two sides, always puts Abbasid ahead. The only way you get around that is if you, as the French player, pivot into racks. And the problem I've been seeing so far out of a lot of these French players is when they go for racks, it's right at the beginning. And it's because they're under pressure. If they ever have the freedom to move out, a lot of these players, even in the top 50, don't go for racks until they're given a very clear and decisive reason that they need a racks. But we'll see what he does. One other cool play StrikeR could do that we've seen be pretty damn effective, actually, against horsemen spamming, is to spam them yourself. It's a very cost-effective solution. There's a lot of reasons why horsemen are better than knights right now for the French. The ranged armor buff means you can actually tank a little bit more from ranged fire, from TCs, whatever, so you can still fearlessly dive. Although the damage is higher for knights, they are a lot more pricey as well. And it means that you have to take the risk of going for gold instead of safely gathering food nearby. It also means you're stretching out your eco to different points, right? Whereas if you're only going for food, you might be pushing in one direction. If you're going for gold as well, you've got to worry about a second line that might be exposed to, say, enemy horsemen. But anyway, on top of that, it's the fact that horsemen move quicker than the knights. So they can disengage very fast if they're countered. They can wrap around on the side of a fight very fast. They can even chase down scouts and strip away vision. And that's actually the detail I'm looking for here. I think this is something that Leenock is going to dominate StrikeR in. I think he's going to do a better job of maintaining control of vision. Because if there's one thing I can note about these StarCraft players, time and time again, more so than any other players from any other game, they prioritize vision. And it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. They come from a game where it's expected, with at least 2 of the 3 factions, for you to take a worker from your work lines early on and move out and scout out what your opponent is doing. Because that info, that initial info is vital. And that continued info is vital because it leads to those transitions we talked about. And in a game such as Age of Empires 4, that's even more important because transitions are critical to success due to the nature of Age of Empires being a counter RTS. You win RTSs like this by building the counter to that unit, right? If your opponent shows only cavalry, you build spears. If your opponent shows spears, you build archers. You know, if your opponent's going hard into armor units, you build crossbows. Everything has been designed specifically. Whenever you have a game that has info like this, where you get bonus damage against X or Y unit or unit type, that is when you know you're playing a game where you have to play into these transitions. And that is where the scouting matters most. So for now, StrikeR is getting up, and it looks like he's going to be dropping the mill early on as well. So this could be early wheelbarrow. Not pro scouts. Don't like jump the gun and think, oh, it's pro scouts coming out straight away. That is an option, however, when you're up against Abbasids, as usually Abbasid players, unless they're forced to be aggressive and feudal, if they're given the option to scale into multi-TCs, they will just settle on a racks and wait. They won't necessarily go straight into the horseman. However, when you're up against a high-level player like Leenock, who understands the dynamics of these civs, if he doesn't see any pressure coming into his base early on, i.e. knights or horsemen, he might be inclined to build stables himself, and that would leave you vulnerable if you go pro scouts. We'll see in a sec. A StrikeR, he has got the resources for wheelbarrow. I think this might just be pro scouts, though. Yep, straight away. So no interest in wheelbarrow at all. Meanwhile, on the other side, wheelbarrow is already underway for Leenock. He'll begin his tech up and complete it around the same time as his French opponent. And the racks has already been dropped. So Leenock, as we said, this is the natural opener. You know you're going to come under fire. You know you're going to need to defend your eco lines. Question is whether he shifts on the stone. So far, he is ignoring it. But this might just be to get that initial investment of wood, because you want this racks up quickly as possible. And you will need the additional wood to then build into a mining cabinet as the stone outcropping. Meantime, Knights now starting to come out for StrikeR. And look. Why is he allowed to do this? I'm always baffled when people allow their opponents to do this. StrikeR saw this as well. Leenock is literally just parked here with a scout. And he's doing it on both sides. He does this intentionally so frequently. Wow, he might even... Is he going to get the villager? I think so. Oh, the shivs. Oh, my God. So close. 2 health. Not able to get it in the end. But he still has this vision. He just sees everything. So he knows what's happening. He sees the mill's been dropped. And if he sees more scouts being pushed out, he's going to understand what the play is. His opponent's going pro scouts. And then Leenock has the info to adjust his game. Knight in the meantime, diving in. Villager. We'll get in just in time. Didn't begin the strike animation. Leenock's being a little bit budget on the spear count, and this is why. I was kind of surprised when I looked, and I think there's like how many here? I think there's only 2 spearmen. When you only have 2 spearmen, it's kind of a given sign, like you're showing your opponent you're going into stables. So although he's now starting to get horsemen out, he's not fully prepped to defend these lines against these initial knights. Not that it matters when StrikeR lets them be sniped out like that. Scout and scout. This is not really a fight that you want to be taking. And as a result, StrikeR will back away as Leenock was a little bit quicker in his animation initially and will continue to get that vision. And so far, StrikeR's not blinking. Like, he now knows Leenock sees everything he's doing. So unless he gets rid of the scout, if he invests in any military building and it gets spotted out, this is bad news. Luckily for him, because Leenock went on the northern side, you can see that StrikeR now has the option to drop the archery range on the south without being seen, at least for the moment. However, this archery range is ill-informed. Did the Knight not see? I don't think the Knight saw at all, folks, and that's why he's doing this. So StrikeR, once again, it's the vision difference. Leenock prioritizes it, and instead StrikeR ignores it. He plays in the dark, and as a result is building an archery range because there's a natural composition for this Civ, and it means that you're going to be counted out by the horsemen that have already been built. That's such a big mistake. Leenock, in the meantime, now prepping the secondary TC. Has to worry about the Knight still being frustrating, but he's got to be feeling confident. When he shows up in the base and he spots out this archery range, like, your thumbs up. Also, the horsemen going to be fantastic at pinning you in and denying you from getting onto the deer and dragging them back with these scouts. So, really frustrating state of the game right now for StrikeR. He's kind of played himself into a corner. It's not unrecoverable. Not at 7 minutes in, that would be absurd. But he needs to rethink this, because I think if he heavily invests in archers, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Meantime, the Gaia units sense that StrikeR has mismatched with his composition, and they seek to assist him. But it's going to be too little too late. TC is going to be cancelled. Shift over to the wood line. I like this. I think you'll want a lot of wood in your composition as the game goes on. If you think about the units you're going to build for the moment, like, you know, you're talking about these horsemen, you're talking about the spearmen, they're going to use wood. Then later on, if you want to get archers, same, you need wood. Then you talk about siege weapons, wood. Like, in a lot of ways, most of Abbasid's desirable comps, it's food and wood a lot of the time. Especially considering that right now, the way the meta plays for Abbasids, it's no longer about the Castle Age rush. Before the changes to berries and before the changes around their tech-up timings, weirdly enough, even with longer timings to wait to get teched up, a lot of the Abbasid's plays were around eco-booming into castle because you just needed the crawling siege. That was your power, was actually building siege out in the field. But ever since the horsemen got buffed and the berries got buffed, all of a sudden there's a much wider timing in feudal age that can be tapped into by the Abbasids with their superior economical game. It's going to be another stables. So, StrikeR stubbornly refusing to go for the triangle. I can see where he's coming from. Like, it can feel very delicate. If you go for all 3 different military buildings, technically you counter everything, but you're a jack of all trades. You're not specializing in anything. So it means it's very hard to outmass your opponent. And although, like, you might have, say, you get into your spearmen, you're going to have, like, yeah, spearmen are going to counter out the horsemen. If there's double the horsemen, and they're able to dynamically move around the fight, you don't feel good about it because you can never actually stick on top of the spears. You do deter them, but let's say there's archers in the mixer for Leenock, he's still going to pick apart your own spears. It's that kind of wonky feeling. Like, there are games where the jack of all trades approach is nice. There's a good reason why in a lot of games you see players play into 2 types of units. And there are still moves StrikeR can make with his 2 type of units. You can see what he's doing with the Knights now. He'll be able to keep raiding through. He can dodge out the spearman for the most. It's really critical that Leenock starts to like pin him in. You can see he's got these small walls coming out. He's looking for these optimal wall placements that don't take a lot of wood, but naturally prolong the distance that StrikeR has to cross to actually get around on these eco lines. And no body block attempt coming out from Leenock there. I haven't really seen too many players utilize this yet. It's hard to achieve, but there is a way to body block. Usually it's all about getting your units to automatically attack so they hold their grounds. And it would have allowed time for the spearmen to potentially catch up. I think the only time I've seen it utilized in the N4C games... Actually, no, it wasn't. It was the winners in last week. The only time I've seen it utilized, I think, was in the Winner Stays On series by B, when he was able to block the pursuit of a bunch of knights onto his knights by putting a scout between them. And then, although there isn't any like body block to the equivalent of, say, what Dota 2 has, where you can hard body block, because of the nature of the way that these units push against each other with their hitboxes, if you put yourself between them, especially if you're a slower unit, you can actually slow them down. Or if you stand your unit on the spot, they'll have to pathfind around it, or they'll push against it aggressively until they get past it. Either way, it will slow down the movement away by other units. Berry expansion achieved. This is actually a jackpot for Leenock. Just look at the amount of eco in this area. He needs to be careful about the raids, but if he can hold him back, StrikeR is going to fall behind. He already is. I mean, the eco count for the moment is favorable for StrikeR, but in the next 2 minutes, that's going to escalate, and at least unless he can snipe out some of these villies. Spears weighing on the left side. Horseman count is not healthy for Leenock because they're away from home. They're in the middle of the field right now. And this is a golden opportunity. Big mistake by Leenock. He goes on the aggressive, but doesn't really do anything with it. He hasn't even been denying the scouts from picking up the deer. Instead, he's denied on his gold, and now he might be denied on the berry bush as well. Because 6 spearmen are not going to be good enough. With 11 archers here, StrikeR doubling down on this composition is starting to find dividends. Moving straight in. Leenock has nowhere to run and hide. This is going to be such a big hit to his economy as well. And they're running in to no man's land. There's nowhere safe here. However, that does mean that now Leenock, he's peeled him back. He's going to turn around and move on the archers. And a lot of spearmen coming. It's going to be a hit into the economy. If he can at least mop up all of the archers, it's not too bad of a trade for Leenock, but it still hurts. And Leenock will have to leave those archers behind. He at least gets the more premium unit out. Losing this many knights at this stage would hit him hard. Just think about the replacement factor. Like, you have to pay 240 resources 6 times. You're paying more than half your castle age to replace these units. So really important that he gets them away. Hurts to lose the archers, but they're more affordable. They're more of a cannon fodder unit for this comp. The real detail is the fact that Leenock has been stunted again. He's only 3 villages behind because, of course, StrikeR couldn't keep chasing those villies after reinforcements arrived, so some of them did survive. But he's at least slowing down Leenock from escalating. And that's the important detail against the Abbasids. You know they want to get greedy with these multi-TCs. The best move for you is to ensure that your economy is self-sustained and you're always able to assassinate theirs. And it's really important the way StrikeR's playing this game. He's playing everything condensed. He's not being too greedy with his expansions because he knows there's horsemen in the field. And he's always keeping pressure on Leenock's side of the map to ensure that this horseman variable that the Abbasids have never comes into the equation. It never moves across to his side of the map and punishes his eco lines. Horseman numbers starting to grow. This is more in line with what we're kind of come to expect out of the Horseman spam, right? Getting up to these numbers. And Leenock, look at that. Healthy. The only reason it's taken him this long to get this many Horsemen is because he wasn't rushing Castle. And this is the big difference with Abbasid these days. Yes, they will almost always go for that secondary TC. But they will not sacrifice their presence in Feudal for a quicker Castle Age timing. They'll delay it by an extra minute or 2, maybe even more, to ensure that they have a strong foothold, that when they arrive in Castle, their opponent cannot instantly punish them. And that is crippling for civs like France that thrive on prolonged feudals. So many spears. Nothing he can do to get in anymore. He also took the Phalanx upgrade. I love this. I've seen a lot of players neglect to get this, but when you're up against cavalry civs like the French, it's invaluable. It's double the amount of spears that are able to instantly attack. When you root and stun initially in these charges, that like nullifying them when the knights move in, the second line of spears are going to be able to stab as well. So you're doubling your DPS. Horseman moving in. Just a cannon fodder throwaway in a way. Doesn't want to hang around, though. Just too many troops here. He is going to see the tech up. StrikeR's going up himself. Although he'll keep him off for a moment as he peels the villagers back, Leenock is got to be a little bit frustrated about this. Considering how many of these archers he butchered, considering how many StrikeR had to rebuild, the fact that he's still going to reach a pretty decent cast stage time against France has to make Leenock quite uncomfortable. He will at least have the edge, reaching up as the Abbasids first, but he's not going to have that clear lead he was looking for on the tech front. And you have to wonder if we're reaching kind of walling off points. I wouldn't mind seeing more walls go down, because now you're going to be up against veteran Royal Knights just kind of flourishing in this open battlefield, moving in, looking for these pocket ecos that you've got going. But instead, it's going to be the prioritization outpost, double outpost going down. There are 20 villages here, but it will be a big deterrent to a hard dive coming out from StrikeR. The StrikeR, I wonder if there's going to be a pivot. Obviously, you want to juice up your knights as soon as possible once you've upgraded into the castle age. The question is whether Arbiter is on the table. It's a natural choice when you think you're going to be up against man-at-arms, which, considering you're up against Abbasids, that's a sure shout, especially with multi-racks down. Also, works out very nice against the Mangonel spam because you can drop the pieces. So overall, a decent play. The problem he has is, look at the prep. Leenock is already getting the Mangonels down. And this is concerning because you've delayed your timing. You're behind the Abbasid player getting up into castle. And now, if you want to address the siege, you need to build your own siege workshops. And you do not have that much surplus wood to afford both the siege workshop and the springles you need to protect yourself. And you're going to need to protect yourself soon. And with this many spears, you can't rely on a Zerg out of your knights to burn down these Mangonels. Third Mangonel now coming out. The ambush is there. The range is good. Damage done. StrikeR hasn't realized it yet because he can't see them on the map. He doesn't have vision. And once again, it comes to bite him in the arse. The detail we keep talking about. Vision is critical in this game. And I don't think StrikeR has a single scout in the field. He sees nothing. And that's crippling as well. He was just switching over. We talked about needing surplus wood for the siege workshop. He'll be able to afford that, but he needs to now replace these farms which have been burnt down. And look at the numbers. They are not healthy for him. Leenock now moving in. Veteran Spearman now building in the spring. So even when you have the siege workshop, you won't have the solution. And 3 Mangonels. Insert that escalate quickly because it really did. The butchering continues. There is nothing he can do. But he's going to have to soon. Question is what? He's onto a new wood line. If they discover that wood line, this might just all be over. Leenock moving out now. Needs to be careful. Mangonels are in range of the TC, but he's just butchering all these villages. Remember, with so much ranged armor, you just don't even care. It's trivial. And it's kind of baffling. A lot of people don't think about farms being sniped as this important, but it really is. You're stunted on your eco growth so hard right now. You lack the food, and you need all the wood you can get to build siege weapons. You can't afford to reinvest it in farms. And it's such a big detail. And now the shot. Can he get it off? If he hits that eco line, it's big trouble for StrikeR, but nice distraction with the Knights moving in. It's going to force Mangonels to respond to it. But villages, once again, not gathering on the wood. Gold needs to be sought for StrikeR as well. Finally looking to produce his first springle, but while he's producing his first, Leenock might produce his third at this rate. He just needs more gold. And it looks like he's tapped into a new vein. That's the only reason he hasn't got more sieges. He was shifting to a new gold line while this was all happening. And this is do or die. If this works for StrikeR, he's back in this game. If it's a flop, he's out. Because if you lose this many knights on a wraparound attack that fails, there's nothing to defend you. Mangonels could be firing on the School of Cavalry, but just not right now. They are going for the villagers, though. The hit's in. It's good. Damage done. Most of them butchered. Leenock now up at 54. StrikeR at 48. And 2 Springles versus StrikeR's measly 1. He realizes he's still not there yet. Will he ever be there is the real question. I think soon we're going to get an answer. StrikeR realizes he can't wait around anymore. He's going to have to prep these knights. He's going to have to make a move soon. But no, the outpost from Leenock. Vision and a foothold to retreat to. If this goes down, StrikeR is in dire straits. And StrikeR sees it. He has to move out. Mangonels being baited by the archers. Knights trying to wrap around, but the spearmen can protect. Scouts, 14 of them trying to burn for the siege. With so many spearmen here, can they do it? Mangonel shots coming out, trying to keep the archers back. They move in though, stacking on top of the Mangonels, but the spears piercing through them with the phalanx, able to blitz through them so quickly. They haven't even got through the first Mangonel and they're butchered. The Knights can't even reach the Mangonels. This looks all but over. And this right here is the power of slaying farms and the power of phalanx, as the power of Leenock is already exuding into this series. After way too many push-ups being redeemed, it's time to work out our brains instead, as we have to figure out why mirror matchups are a thing and why this mirror matchup is a thing. As we get into game number 2, you know it's going to be Water Penis map. Which is appropriately named because by the end of this, someone is going to get dicked. It's a question of who. Will it be the Roost player or will it be the Roost player? Pick now. Well, I'm going to make a wide assessment here and say that a Roost player is going to win this one. I know. It's a very impressive assessment. However, of these Roost players, which one has the edge? I would say StrikeR has a better spawn. So StrikeR has no place complaining to the RNG gods, as I think the gold veins are equal distance away, and really 4,000 gold is usually enough to decide this map. Then it comes down to food. Well, StrikeR has the pristine deep water fish location right next to him. Leenock's is a little bit further out. So I'm intrigued to see if having the edge on the generation is going to give StrikeR the edge in this one. You can tell by the lack of excitement in my voice that I'm either not excited for a Mirror Mirror Roost matchup or I've been doing too many push-ups. It's a little bit of both. But in this game, I don't think there's like too much that we haven't already covered seeing Roost. I don't even know how many times. Like, the first few minutes of this are really cut and dry. The only thing that really makes a difference when you're talking about Roost on Roost is who got bet spawn. It's why I'm not the biggest fan of mirror matchups. It's why a lot of people don't like mirror matchups right now. Is because, especially with the cranky, sporadic, overly energetic nature of the map generation tool, sometimes the game is simply decided by generation. Luckily in this one, it's not that drastic of a difference that it will completely cripple Leenock. But it's actually depressing when you think of mirror matchups simply coming down to something as simple as who has a deep water fish a bit closer. I think in this game, Leenock is a better micro is my concern. So like if we get into these fights and he starts min-maxing, like we've seen Lucifer do, like we've seen Vortex do, this could get very dicey for StrikeR. And StrikeR, because of the location of his initial docks, it's really annoying to build additional docks past like 2, right? There's enough room for one more dock and then you have to like scurry all the way along. I think you have to walk around these cases as well. You might just about be able to walk across here. Meanwhile, Leenock can expand north and south easily. There's plenty of room for like 4 or 5 docks here. So it's kind of crazy to think that like when you look at these generations, although StrikeR got a slightly better fish placement, if this goes long into like 3 or 4 docks, it could become something as trivial as the amount of time that someone has to take to walk a villager elsewhere to build it. And if that is the variable we're looking at, Leenock has the edge. So, the question is if anyone wants to try and sidestep into wooden fortresses. I think we've seen one wooden fortress today, and it wasn't even for the tree lines. It was to protect the docks. I feel like with the way you have to play on Boulder Bay as the Roost right now, going for a wooden fortress at all, although you gain benefits down the line, it actually cripples your initial fishing, like your initial boat production line. And unless you've got, say, at least a 2-boat lead, it's rarely worth it. Unless you're up to, like, say, 10 or 11 and a stalemate has taken hold, in which case you can kind of gamble on it. But for the first 10 boats, I think it's fair to say you're almost never going to see a wooden fortress. If someone drops a wooden fortress on even footing, they're surrendering the game, essentially. It's really weird. Wow, you can see the prioritization, by the way, of how important this is. 9 villages for StrikeR, 10 for Leenock. Leenock will get the tech up first. We're not seeing any shenanigans. I see that. There it is. What? Hold up. Why? What? Oh my... What? Okay, this is kind of smart, actually. So a Lodger transport ship takes 5 seconds less to produce, but costs extra wood. It also, by the way, has 600 health. So while it's converting, it can't be insta-sunk. This is crazy from StrikeR. What the hell? But Leenock, he beamed the punchline. He will convert across first. And now it's StrikeR's turn to strike. That is actually crazy. I don't think I've seen a player do that before. And there'll be a second conversion for Leenock. Counterattacks coming out. Larger fishing boats will look to bank up. And Leenock needs to back away, or he could be assassinated on this archer ship stuck between two. And it looks like he's going to be chased down. That's cool, though. That play of the logic transport is a very interesting one. It basically stops any defensive fleet from being able to turn and instantly burn the transport ship. And look at that, an easy turn and burn. Leenock gets one and shifts away his damaged one. So StrikeR with a clear edge. It did cost him more to get that transport ship compared to the fishing boat. But it's essentially, like, you're bribing for quicker production, right? You're paying the boat mafia extra money so they give you a boat quicker. And it means that he's able to get additional boats after that out quicker as long as he floats surplus economy, which he's doing. It's actually a really smart play. And all of a sudden, free... oh my god, he gets another one. I was about to say 3 versus 2 is 3 versus 1. StrikeR's coming back, baby. And it looks like Leenock has gone hard in the conversion. So he's actually stunted his own scaling. You can see there's still 1 fishing boat operational for StrikeR, so he's still getting benefits on the water. Which also, like, it pads him against the initial investment in that transport ship, right? Because that's the thing. Like, if you're investing in that, like, having a 1 or 2 fishing boat advantage, that leverage allows you to push more people on land onto wood, which means that you're able to actually keep affording the same amount of fishing boats or more, but you should, in theory, be ahead of your opponent because of that extra 5-second buffer from building the transport ship that's quicker than the fishing boat. And yeah, like the other thing I think is being highlighted, I've seen people mention this as well, like the change in cost. I can't remember the exact cost of upgrading a transport ship into an attack ship, but I think it is cheaper than the fishing boat to make up for it. Overall, just a crazy idea that works out really well. So smart from StrikeR. And he'll move in. Leenock, now on the defensive, needs to be careful. Needs to try and actually garrison these attack ships as they get low. And instead, he's just shifting away with the drive-by. It's going to be chased down. Nice shift away, StrikeR. He pulled away the damaged one. He still hasn't sunk this yet, though. He moves in. Final burst comes out. And now, Leenock needs to be careful, because if he pursues this, his weakened ship is on the front. Another lead just slowly building up for StrikeR. Now, with a 1 military lead. I think that just might be a scout situation, though. And Leenock, I love that he's done this. We just saw earlier today a player sneak an on-land force to punish his opponent after he beat him on the water. Leenock doesn't want to allow that, so he's keeping an eyeball on what's happening in StrikeR's base. StrikeR is not doing the same. StrikeR is playing blind. Once again, a very big mistake, and no great reason for it. I think he maybe had his scout sniped out, but how is the question? Did he lose the scout duel? I think he did. That hurts. So while Leenock is snitching, StrikeR's going to be doing something else that rhymes with that. If that's the detail that matters, because it might be. For the moment, he at least has the lead on the waterfront by 1 boat. The problem is, he can never try and shift militarily onto land because Leenock will instantly see it, and then his reaction will probably be to wall off these passes and then instantly double down the waterfront, understanding his opponent, if he does go into a stable and build 1 or 2 knights, is going to sacrifice that floated economy that he could be pushing into the waterfront. Moving out. 8 archer ships trying to move across. But by the time they arrive, they're going to be outnumbered, so you do need to be a little bit careful. And I don't think either player actually bothered to get the mast. No. StrikeR moving in. Leenock needs to be careful. He's already going to lose one of these boats. Big mistake made there with the formation shuffle. It's going to even up, though. Remember, he does have the repairs on the home field. However, he's boxing himself in. He's at least getting decent trades so far, and it looks like it is going to be slightly in favor of Leenock at this rate, but he's not actually garrisoning the damaged ships. He's not able to get them away at all. I say garrison, at least shift them back, rather. But in the end, actually, StrikeR's going to keep his lead. He's going to make it even better. He sinks another one in the outro. It feels like Leenock is just generously donating ship after ship to StrikeR at this rate. You know, keep his lead. Still no switch up, just 2 docks. And I know what you're all thinking right now. How can KP have this much excitement, glee, and enjoyment for a Roost Mirror matchup on Boulder Bay? The answer is simple. Way too much energy drink. Because admittedly, these battles, I know what you're thinking, folks. It's going to get boring. Don't worry, though, because we're getting to the culmination point. We're past the tedium of the 3 to 6 mark, where I think, like, outside that cute play of the transport ship, everything's expected. This is where the micro can really make a difference. Leenock, he sticks on the Titanic theme soon. Gets some Celine Dion in his ear. But I don't think he realizes that's just bad luck. And look at this, StrikeR. He on purpose peels back, so there's more ground for Leenock to cover. Leenock quick to pull away, though. Will not take any casualties. Kind of surprising the way that StrikeR is actually just hiding. Or as I like to call it, the please, daddy, don't. Just gets in the corner. Just leave me alone. I mean, that's a lot of respect shown to Leenock. And now Leenock going to escalate into a third dock, something that StrikeR is not doing. StrikeR's got to be fast. I think StrikeR expected more boats, and that's why he got paranoid and pinned himself. Leenock needs to be careful. This formation is not good if you want to keep your ships alive. You're not maxing your damage. Instead, you're going to lose one instantly. Big mistake made there. And now StrikeR's in deep. And he's just trying to keep all the boats above the sea level. And it's working out. This shuffle from Leenock is not good. StrikeR gonna stick on top of him and just sink him to the bottom of the ocean. With a 3-point lead on these ships, more than floating in, Leenock is running out of room to wiggle. But don't worry, you might not be able to wiggle, but right now StrikeR looking to make you squeal like a piggy. Even with the healing on the home field, it's not good enough. It's evening up somewhat, but StrikeR still having the edge, more boats pushing out. Leenock, he did get that additional dock down, yes, but is not really able to do anything with it as it stands. He hasn't got the surplus resource floating to do anything. And it looks like that fleet is going to be sunk. Question is, what does Leenock do next? Does he give up? No. He says, the honor of the world is on the line. I can't allow another European through to that lad. I will make my stand here on Boulder Bay. The boulders on this lad. Despite a clear lead on the waterfront for StrikeR, Leenock refuses to tap out. But he might start thinking elsewhere. He might start thinking, do I need to look on land for a solution? Push back, StrikeR, this time for once, peeling off an archer ship. When you get this low on the count, every single one matters, so you will try to min-max them. Leenock futilely just investing non-stop in these boats, but really gaining no ground. And StrikeR starting to escalate. You can see the wood is looking healthy. Food's building up a little bit. He might think about switching, and there's the wooden fortress. And that is going to be a difference maker. That's going to give him surplus eco to trade into gold at all times. And that's when this game gets scary. StrikeR right now is like, well, why is he not tapping out? Why is he not giving up? I have more boats. There's a rule. There's a code of honor, sir. Leenock can't hear him as he turns up Celine Dion even louder. Boats will get away for StrikeR again. Leenock is starting to replace this fleet, though. The numbers are diminishing for StrikeR. He's been here so long and got so little for it. Oh, my goodness. Now, StrikeR is going to fall back with a ridiculous slog of wood in reserve. It looks like he's actually going to shift it all across. Where'd it go? Yeah, he's producing the new ones. I'm about to say, he's just queuing them all up, isn't he? Third dock now down. This is really what he needed earlier. That's the reason he wasn't able to fully escalate, is Leenock, when it's only 2 dock he's up against, if he's trading out evenly, he knows his opponent isn't escalating up to a high enough count. And instead, because he had his third dock working ahead of time, Leenock all of a sudden is getting a little bit closer to where StrikeR's at. StrikeR still with a clear lead at 9, but Leenock all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, up to 6 again. And there it is, the stable. And this info won't be fed across because Leenock lost his scout. It's what I was looking for earlier on the fog. It must have went a little bit too close to the sun and got burned. And it means that this is going to be snuck. It's not going to be known about. And by the time Leenock realizes that there's knights in play, they're probably going to be in his base. And that is dangerous. Oh, and the move in. They snipe out the villager as well. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Or easy peasy, leany squeezy. And this will be concerning. Just 2 or 3 knights could completely trample Leenock's hope of winning this game. The hit on his eco line would hurt. Think about how many villagers are out here. 25. This wooden fortress will only protect 8 of them. And as you move further and further away, the run back is just a slaughterhouse for knights to manipulate. Moving in on the Waterfront again. StrikeR, once again, like, why won't you just give up? I have the numbers. Be a mathematician about this, but Leenock, he doesn't play on math. He plays on a hope and a prayer in this situation. So the micro ain't working out for him. Even with the assistance of the healing, it's still good trades for StrikeR. Amassing even more, now up to 11 compared to the 8. Still keeping that 3-point differential. The difference, however, is he's finally queued up the Knights. We'll start to shift them across now. And then Leenock is going to have an uncomfortable situation. Do I go into a Rax? Do I protect myself? Is the game going to be over? Can I move out and walk quick enough? These are all options he's going to have to consider. The issue is because he doesn't any longer have that scout, he doesn't have the heads up to prep one of these things ahead of time. And still no sales upgrade. I'm really surprised by this. It would be a fantastic investment because you'd be able to just catch stragglers like this at all times. The quick engage and disengage factor actually matters a lot. It's why I've seen quite a few of these matchups where it comes down to the sales. I understand why Leenock isn't going for it because he's still behind on the numbers, but I feel like, honestly, StrikeR's continued to build up a slightly bigger lead, now 4-point differential on the boats. He could afford to stop off for additional sales. It's not really that pricey for what it is either. Then again, if he did, you know what he wouldn't be able to afford? Big boys on horseback. Look at that, guys. A lance that big? Oh, mate, you could stick 4 villagers on that and cook them over a campfire. I think that's exactly what he's looking to do. Roost Knight's just looking proud of himself. Like, yes, that's exactly the plan. And Leenock will not expect it at all. I don't know why Roost Knights are evil. Actually, I do. They butcher innocent villagers. Do you really have to ask? Chivalry doesn't mean what it used to, folks. And this is going to be a surprise. I expect 2 villagers to be a sassy node here. Depends on where he goes. See, StrikeR doesn't know about the goal line at the back. He'll understand the wood line is here. He has to understand at this stage in the game, his opponent should be deep in this line and thus exposed. And the distraction's on. He moves in with the boats on the sea, and that means Leenock's been looking there instead of in his base. And the Knight's in. But he didn't get the lance attack off. He'll get 1 villager. Could club down a second, but he backs away. He's going to see a second one on the exit if he turns around, though. Easy peasy. We'll move in for that one as well, although there is room to garrison it, and it is going to be a Rax reaction straight away out of Leenock. Second villager will go down, so he has got the eco lead now, and he still has the boat lead. Oh my, he definitely has the boat lead. New patch release, by the way, guys. I'm predicting the future. New patch release. Boats now collide with each other and cause damage. Developer note, we really got sick of the Zerg. Drift King here with these long formations shuffling around, and it is benefiting Leenock. Gonna snipe a boat first, and all of a sudden they're on equal footing. Uh-oh. Leenock going in deep. He needs to micro this. If he does it perfectly, all of a sudden this is going to get dark for StrikeR, but same goes the other way. However, StrikeR, he keeps waypointing these boats through their freebies to pick off for Leenock. Leenock peeling back now. We'll get through that front line while his back gets tushkied up. Turns around again. Sees a bunch of flaming ships here. As it stands, Leenock at 32, but StrikeR up at 42. He's escalating. He's doing this better, and he's getting more damage into Leenock than the other way around. And he's sticking on top of him, more importantly. There's no move away. The sails upgrade, that's the difference here. 1.72 tile movement speed means he can gap close at all times, but he needs to make sure he's microing alongside it. Leenock now at 10. StrikeR up at 14 is going to stick to him like glue, and there's nowhere for Leenock to run and hide. Even with the healing on his side, this is a notable lead, which means he can easily turn and burn the entire fleet. And this might force Leenock off. Because this count, this amassment with this many docks, there's no way StrikeR's going to struggle to replace this quick enough. And with the fleet already being gone, 13 ships remaining, it took him longer than he would have liked, but StrikeR, from start to finish here, stays ahead of Leenock and ensures that he will even this series up 1-1 apiece, because with no fleet left, there is no chance for Leenock to come back.